Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be exploring some stories that are, well, frankly, they're incredibly unsettling.
Yeah, these aren't your typical campfire tales. These come from real accounts, investigations, even official reports sometimes.
Exactly. We're looking into those strange, sometimes terrifying parts of human experience, the unexplained, and trying to understand, why these things stick with us.
What they might reveal.
Right. Now, before we jump in, if you find yourself wanting more of this kind of spine-tingling stuff after we're done, you might want to check out the Chilling app.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's got a huge library of unique, scary story narrations. I even narrate some on there. They add new ones every week. True crime, paranormal thrillers, classics. Lots to choose from.
Sounds interesting.
It is. We'll put a link for a free trial in the description. Okay, so let's get into our first story. It's a real historical head-scratcher. We're going back to April 18th, 1943. Hagley Wood, Worcestershire, in England. Picture this. 4 young boys, just kids really, out doing some bird nesting. Apparently that was a thing back then.
A popular pastime, yeah.
So they're in the woods, maybe straying a bit where they shouldn't be, and they come across this really big old wych elm tree. It's got this hollow trunk.
Okay.
One of the boys, Robert Farmer, he decides to climb up, takes a look inside, and, well, he sees a human skull.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just staring back at him. Apparently still had some hair, some teeth. Just imagine.
Terrifying for a kid. For anyone, really.
Absolutely. And they were scared stiff, not just by the skull, but because they knew they were trespassing on Lord Copham's land.
Right. Double trouble.
So they bolted. Didn't tell anyone, just ran home, probably white as sheets. But later that night, another boy, Thomas Willett, he starts having these awful nightmares.
About the skull?
About a woman trapped inside the tree, wailing. It freaked him out so much that the next morning, he just had to tell his parents everything.
Couldn't keep it. Understand.
Yeah. So the parents call the police. They arrive, investigate the wych elm, and sure enough, inside they find almost a whole skeleton.
The rest of the body.
Yeah, plus a gold wedding ring, scraps of clothing. And then, nearby, hidden away, a severed human hand.
A severed hand. Okay, that adds a whole other layer of grim.
Definitely. So the big questions are obvious. Who was she? How did she get in there? And why the severed hand?
So what did the forensics say? I mean, for 1943.
Well, they figured out she hadn't been dead too long, maybe a year and a half, tops, which puts her death around October 1941.
Okay, so fairly recent for the time.
Right. And they found a piece of taffeta fabric stuffed in her mouth.
Taffeta, like the fancy dress material.
Exactly, which suggested asphyxiation, but also, well, taffeta wasn't cheap. Did it mean the killer was wealthy? Or maybe the victim worked with fabrics, like a dressmaker.
Interesting clue. Anything else?
The coroner figures she must have been put in the tree almost immediately after death, before rigor mortis set in.
Because otherwise she wouldn't have fit into the hollow space. Makes sense.
Yeah. But identifying her, that was a nightmare in itself. It's World War II, remember?
Oh, right. Records would be chaotic. Missing persons everywhere because of the Blitz.
Precisely. They checked hundreds of missing person reports, looked at dental records, but nothing matched her unique tooth pattern. She remained Jane Doe.
Just unknown.
But the public was hooked. And then, in 1944, things got even weirder. Graffiti started appearing on the Hagley obelisk nearby.
What did it say?
Just a simple, chilling question. Who put Bella in the wych elm?
Bella, but her identity wasn't known.
Nope. The name Bella hadn't been released. So who wrote it? And how do they know a name? It just deepened the whole enigma.
And you have to remember, like you said, wartime Britain, resources were stretched incredibly thin. Solving a murder like this, however bizarre, probably wasn't the absolute top priority compared to, the war effort.
That's a very good point. It probably allowed all sorts of speculation to fester, didn't it?
Absolutely. When official answers are slow or non-existent, local theories and folklore tend to fill that vacuum. It speaks volumes about how we handle the unknown, especially during times of great stress.
So what theories did emerge over the years?
Well, there were a few main ones. One popped up suggesting she might be a Birmingham prostitute called Lubella. Apparently, she vanished around 41, but wasn't actually reported missing until 44.
The timing is interesting, but it still doesn't explain how the graffiti writer knew the name Bella so early.
Exactly. Then there was another angle. A woman claimed her husband, Jack Mossop, who was in a mental hospital, confessed something strange.
What was that?
He apparently told her that he and a friend got drunk one night, and this woman they were with got sick in their car. So to scare her, they put her inside the hollow of a tree.
Put her in the tree alive, just to scare her.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty extreme. And did it line up?
The timeline was murky, and Mossop died before it could be fully investigated, so another dead end, really.
Okay, what else?
The theory that really persisted, the most unsettling one, points towards the occult.
Occult? How so?
Well, there was another strange death in the area in 1945. A man named Charles Walton was murdered, pinned to the ground with a pitchfork. It had ritualistic overtone.
Okay, connection.
People started linking it back to Bella, and then someone found this old book from like 1929 talking about local folklore. It mentioned a farmhand named Charles Walton.
The same name?
The same name. This old book claimed this Charles Walton could summon spirits, like a ghostly black dog and a headless woman. Local whisperers said the murdered Walton was maybe a witch, and his death was some kind of pagan ritual.
Wow. So the theory is Bella's death was also some kind of ritual, linked to Walton's.
That's the gist of it, yes. That her death might have been part of some ancient dark ritual, perhaps similar to whatever happened to Walton. And what's really striking is, out of all the theories, the prostitute, the drunken incident, the occult angle, the occult one is the only one that hasn't really been debunked outright.
Just hangs there.
It does. It speaks to how sometimes explanations rooted in deeper, older beliefs seem to fit when nothing else does. But still, that severed hand, who did that? Why? It's just one more grim piece of an already baffling puzzle.
A truly chilling cold case. Okay, from the woods of wartime England, let's move across the globe and forward in time a bit to the Ural Mountains, central Russia.
Ah, the Dyatlov Pass incident.
Exactly. January 1959, we have a group of 9 Soviet hikers. These weren't novices, they were experienced. They went on an expedition.
And none of them came back.
None of them. They all died sometime between February 1st and 2nd. The official cause of death, according to the Russian government, was an avalanche.
But that explanation has always been problematic.
Hugely disputed. And when you hear the details, you understand why. The first thing rescuers found was their tent.
And it was cut open, right, from the inside.
Yes, like they were desperately trying to get out. And then they found the first few bodies scattered nearby, some of them barefoot or just in socks in deep snow, sub-zero temperatures.
Fleeing something in a panic, clearly. But what? The initial autopsies on those first 5 bodies were confusing too.
How so?
The medical examiner found they died of hypothermia, simple exposure. But their injuries were minor scrapes, bruises, nothing fatal. Nothing consistent with being hit by the immense force of an avalanche.
Right. Experienced hikers don't just cut open their tent and run barefoot into a blizzard unless something truly terrifying is happening inside or just outside.
Exactly. It makes no sense.
And then months later, they found the other 4. And this is where it gets really horrifying.
Under meters of snow in a ravine.
Yeah. And their injuries were catastrophic. Major skull damage, crushed ribs, the kind of force you'd expect from a high-speed car crash.
But crucially, no external wounds to match those internal injuries. No major soft tissue damage that you'd expect from being battered by snow and debris in an avalanche.
It gets worse. The reports mention gruesome details about soft tissue. Missing tongues, gouged out eyes, parts of lips sliced off, skull fragments missing, eyebrows cut.
Some tried to explain that away by saying they were found in a stream and water action or decomposition caused it, but that's been heavily debated. Why would they even be in a freezing stream? It would only accelerate hypothermia.
It just doesn't track.
And there are 2 huge elephants in the room, evidence-wise, that the official reports barely touch. First, the complete lack of detail about the hikers' internal organs. All the focus is external. Why?
That is strange. What's the second?
Radiation. Significant levels of radiation were found on at least one hiker's clothing. It's mentioned in the original 1959 files. But the Russian government, to this day, has never offered any explanation for it.
Radiation. Where would that come from?
Exactly. Plus, there was a witness, someone who attended 5 of the funerals, who later said the bodies had this strange, deep brown tan, like nothing they'd ever seen. Radiation, chemical exposure, unknown.
So if not an avalanche, what could have happened? What are the other theories?
Well, early on, they suspected the local indigenous people, the Mansi, reindeer herders.
But that was ruled out.
Yeah, quickly. There were no signs of a struggle, no extra footprints besides the hikers. The Mansi wouldn't have done that anyway.
Okay, so what else? The radiation points a finger, doesn't it?
It certainly fuels the theory of some kind of secret Soviet weapons test gone wrong, especially when you hear other accounts.
Like what?
The lead investigator back in '59, an ex-police officer named Lev Ivanov, later admitted his team had no rational explanation. He said they saw Flying spheres, strange lights in the sky around the time of the incident,
Flying spheres. UFOs.
or something military. Ivanov claimed he was ordered by high-ranking officials to classify the files and basically drop that line of inquiry, retract his claim about the spheres.
It's a cover-up.
It certainly looks that way. And his sighting wasn't isolated. Another group of hikers, about 30 miles south, reported seeing similar strange orange spheres in the sky on the same night. Even the official Soviet Meteorology Service logged reports of these spheres, and they were all told to keep quiet.
Wow. So overwhelming anecdotal evidence against the avalanche theory, too.
And physical evidence. The site itself showed no signs of a recent avalanche. No damaged trees lower down the slope, which you'd expect. The bodies found early on were in relatively shallow snow. A real avalanche powerful enough to cause those internal injuries would have likely swept them much further down or buried them deeper, causing more external trauma.
Plus the terrain itself.
Experts who've studied the area, over 100 expeditions since then, they consistently say the slope angle, the snow conditions in February. An avalanche there is extremely unlikely. Possible, maybe, but highly improbable.
So the official story just falls apart under scrutiny.
Completely. It feels like a textbook case of obfuscation. The refusal to address the radiation, the witness silencing, the physical evidence contradicting the avalanche theory, it strongly suggests something else happened. Something terrifying enough that the state felt the need to hide it, even decades later. It's a chilling example of how official narratives can sometimes conceal a much darker reality.
Truly disturbing. Okay, let's shift focus now from these large-scale, almost historical mysteries to something more intimate, but maybe even more terrifying because of how personal it is.
Right.
This is a story about a college student and her encounters with a homeless man named Wendell. It shows how quickly things can spiral.
Oh.
So initially, she meets Wendell near campus. And he wasn't, immediately threatening. He was actually quite charming, seemed very knowledgeable, could talk about lots of things, even sang opera, apparently.
So she felt some empathy, engaged with him.
Exactly. She talked with him regularly.
Yeah.
But pretty soon, her friends started getting worried. Even her academic advisor pulled her aside.
Why? What did they say?
They saw it as manipulation. The advisor knew a bit about Wendell's background, mentioned drug use, some difficult past relationships. Warning signs, basically.
But she maybe didn't see it that way initially.
Right. Then the pandemic started. So the student moves back home to her small hometown, which is hundreds of miles away from the university campus, thinking, distance, safety.
Except.
But then, one day, she's scrolling through Instagram, sees a friend's story, and in the background of the video, there's Wendell singing opera.
Wait. In her hometown, hundreds of miles away.
Yeah. The video was geotagged, her hometown.
She was shocked, obviously, but tried to rationalize it. Maybe he had family there. Just a weird coincidence. Denial kicking in, maybe.
Probably. But then, not long after, a friend from high school calls her. Says this beggar approached her in town and specifically asked about the student.
Asked about her by name.
Knew her name, knew her college major, even knew she was in the volleyball club. Details.
Okay, that's not a coincidence. That's targeted.
You'd think.
Yeah.
But she still tried to explain it away. Maybe he saw her friend wearing a college sweatshirt or something. She was really trying hard not to believe he followed her.
The mind can play tricks when the alternative is too scary.
Yeah. So then, things escalate. She decides to get even further away. Moves to a different state entirely to stay with her brother for a while.
Okay, another fresh start. More distance.
About 9 days after she gets there, she wakes up one morning, hears her brother talking to someone at the front door. She goes to look.
Don't tell me.
It was Wendell, standing right there on her brother's doorstep. Hundreds, maybe over 1,000 miles from where she first met him.
Oh my God. He tracked her across states.
He'd cleaned himself up, looked presentable, and he told her brother that he was the student's boyfriend, that they'd had a fight, and he tracked her down to apologize and reconcile.
That is profoundly terrifying. The level of obsession, the violation of safety, the realization that someone you felt pity for is actually methodically stalking you. The psychological impact must be immense.
Absolutely. It shatters your sense of security completely. It really shows how that line between empathy and enabling dangerous behavior can be blurry, and the warning signs looking back seem so obvious, but maybe weren't at the time.
Hindsight is always clearer, unfortunately.
So her brother is confused, obviously, but tries to be polite, tells Wendell he needs to leave. And that's when Wendell just snaps. According to the brother, his whole demeanor changed instantly. Eyes bulging, this white foamy stuff appearing at the corners of his mouth, starting to shake, like he just disconnected from reality.
Oh man, drugs maybe, or just pure rage.
Who knows? He starts banging on the windows, yelling things. "That's my girlfriend. You can't keep her in there. Let her out." And then directed at the student inside. "I'm coming for you, baby."
Chilling. Was it a threat or some twisted declaration?
She said she was frozen, couldn't tell, just pure menace. And then he punches right through the window pane.
Punches the glass.
Smashes right through it. She screams. Brother calls 911, but by the time the police got there,
He was gone.
vanished.
The trauma of that, realizing the friendship was a complete delusion, that you missed signs, and then this violent, unprovoked invasion right at your doorstep after you fled across states. It's hard to even imagine the long-term fear that instills. Just awful.
Truly nightmarish.
No.
Okay, for our last story, we're shifting tone slightly. Still chilling. But this one highlights incredible bravery in a moment of absolute terror. This involves a 911 call. Came into the Orange County Sheriff's Office. A dispatcher named Monique Patino picks up.
And what does she hear?
The voice of a little boy, 7 years old. And he sounds utterly terrified. Monique said his fear just saturated the line.
Oh, poor kid. What did he say?
He basically whispered, "There's some guy who's going to kill my mom and dad. Can you come?" He was begging her to send help fast. A lot of cops and soldiers, he said.
Oh my goodness. 7 years old. What was happening?
Turns out 3 armed men had broken into their house, just walked in through an unlocked door. Home invasion.
Jesus.
But this little boy, Carlos, he did something amazing. He saw the men, grabbed the house phone, grabbed his younger sister, ran upstairs into a bathroom, locked the door, and then called 911.
Wow. At 7? That presence of mind under that kind of threat?
Wow.
That's incredible courage. Just instinct taking over maybe, but still. Remarkable.
Absolutely. But while he's on the phone with Monique, things get even scarier. One of the gunmen must have heard him. Monique could hear it over the phone, someone smashing against the bathroom door.
Yeah.
Kicking it, trying to break it down.
Well, the kids are inside screaming.
Yeah. You can hear the kids crying and screaming in the background of the call recording. Monique is trying to keep Carlos calm, get information, while hearing this assault on the door happening in real time.
That must be unbelievably stressful for the dispatcher, too.
No kidding. And then the invader finally breaks through the door. He bursts into the bathroom
Oh, no.
and sees Carlos standing there, holding the phone. And in that instant, the gunman panics.
Realizes they're talking to the police.
Exactly. He yells to his buddies, basically, "Cops are coming." The 3 of them just dropped everything and fled the house immediately. Didn't take anything, didn't harm the family further, just gone.
Because of Carlos. Because he made that call.
Absolutely. His quick thinking saved them. They never caught the guys, unfortunately.
But the family was safe.
They were. They held a news conference later to commend Carlos. He was there, wearing this little LA County Sheriff's Department cap, looking proud, but probably still shaken. He hugged Monique, the dispatcher. She was crying, called him her little hero.
Wow, what a story. It really drives home that lesson, doesn't it? Teaching kids how to use 911. It can literally be life or death.
It really can.
And it also makes you think about the dispatchers, like Monique. The sheer volume of trauma they must absorb over the phone, day in and day out, hearing the absolute worst moments of people's lives unfold. It's an immense psychological burden they carry. True unsung heroes.
That's a very important point. So we've covered quite a bit today. From a decades-old mystery in an English wood,
To the icy enigma of Diet Love Pass.
a terrifying modern stalker, and finally an act of incredible bravery from a child. Quite the range of unsettling experiences.
It really underscores the spectrum, doesn't it? From the seemingly inexplicable, possibly supernatural or covered up, to the very real, very human capacity for both terrifying obsession and extraordinary courage. These stories remind us that there are dark corners, certainly, but also incredible resilience in the face of the unimaginable. Some mysteries just remain, challenging how we see the world.
Well said. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into these unsettling accounts. And remember, if you're looking for more chilling tales, do check out the Chilling app. Hours of content, immersive sound, ad-free. The link is in the description.
Stay safe up there.
We'll be back soon with more. Thanks for listening.